Thank you for the question. Indeed, financing is very critical. We have lived through a world where we had stable pricing in terms of renewables if we go into the financing of renewable sector. Now we see uncertainty. So this volatility that comes into the market and to the forecasted revenue generation that we have, it definitely adds a bit of difficulty, let's say, in terms of the financing. However, we have a lot of ESG targets or green targets that all the industries, the sector, the financing sector as well, has and needs to apply, which makes it easier to attract, let's say, financing for green projects. So even though interest rates are increasing, costs have been going down, as Telis has said earlier, in terms of, for the renewable energy sector at least to become the most competitive in terms of electricity generation. So there are some positive and some negative effects that we have seen in the past, but at the end of the day, all this green push that we have seen in the finance sector makes green energy projects bankable and very appealing to the finance sector to finance. However, it's not only the green energy projects. We have discussed that also in the previous panel that there are other technologies there as well. If we group them into three categories of green projects, then you have the traditional projects because the world needs to keep going. We need to remind to everybody that we have today the biggest consumption of oil in the world than what we had in the past. In terms of barrels per day, we are more than 100 million barrels per day of consumption. So someone needs to address that question as well. We need to say that out loud because absolute numbers matter. I like to speak about the world as a whole. If we are 10 billion people in 20 years from now, that means that we will need at least 30% more energy than what we're consuming in absolute terms than today. So somehow, we need to cover this gap. So what we need to bring realism and pragmatism again also into the financing of all of these projects, and we have seen that from US banks, for example, or from the US financial system, whereas the European financial system has been a little bit more let's say, less appealing in terms of financing natural gas projects or oil projects. There is regulatory uncertainty on this, but we see that the world will still need other products and other technologies as well to be able to electrify, and not only, but also to sustain our energy systems. And then we have a third group, which is the new technologies. And this is a lot of hype and a lot of discussion as well in Europe. We're talking about green hydrogen. We're talking about e-fuels, all of these very nice products that the technology exists is not something that does not exist, but it's expensive to produce, needs to be supported. So we need to identify the tools, the mechanisms that can support the finance sector with all the difficulties that we mentioned before to take a little bit out of this pain of the uncertainty on one hand and the expensiveness and the non-bankability that exists as of now so that we are able to move forward. We talked about greening the industry. We have the CBAM. We have the carbon tax adjustment mechanism of Europe. If we keep making things more expensive, we need to be able to pay for all of this, the products at the end of the day, and to make the industry survive in this environment. If you don't have the incentives or you don't have the subsidies that even the cement industry has received to capture the CO2, this wouldn't be a viable project. So it's not only interest rates. The interest rate environment obviously does not help. It's always better when we have low-cost financing. But we need to see an array of different financial products and mechanisms and instruments that the politicians, the EU, need on one hand, improvise them, but then they need to implement them and to implement them in a fast way because the acceleration that we need is not really there. We need to be able to move faster. It is a word that has been heard also in the previous panel, as much as we can because, yes, climate crisis does not wait, cannot wait, and also industry cannot wait because we cannot put them hostages in this situation where the old situation, should not exist anymore, but the new situation that the companies, the new environment that they will be operating is not there yet and it needs some support. So all of this needs to come together, and we need to make them fast with very decisive measures from all ends of the industry. And my final comment is that, given that I'm representing as well a business school here, and being with the hat of the professor, as some of us at least on this panel here, we need to educate our societies. We need to educate people. We need to educate the policy makers and the leaders that are taking this decision, because unfortunately, many of the times they are not informed, they do not have the full picture, and this is the problem that is creating all the issues that we discussed earlier. And of course, educate the industry as well, and the executives, the leaders of tomorrow, that they need to understand what the reality of tomorrow will be, so that they can take the right measures from today. They need to have the right tools, and this is our task as well as academics to be able to do that in the academic environment as well, which is usually the safest environment as well.